Okay. Shalom, good afternoon, everybody. How are you guys doing? How's your day been? How's your week been?
He's just having a great day.
He's having a great day. I heard it was a good day. Okay. Nice to see everyone again. Some people back from different overseas trips and all kinds of things. So amazing to see you guys. And even people who've been around. Also good to see you too. Okay, we are taking a bit of an adventure this term to, in some ways, the opposite end of what we've been dealing with in the past. Similar things, but in many ways, the exact opposite way of dealing with it. What we had done in the past is we take biggest topics in faith and things which are deeply interesting and fascinating and try and understand them and make them, even if we're lucky, relatable to life. This time we're doing exactly the opposite of that. Is we're taking problems in life, taking things relating to growth, personal development, or dealing with challenges that we have to deal with in life, and seeing how we can inform those using some of the Torah's deepest sources. So that is our adventure that we're going to try and go along this Zman. Each session is meant to be standalone, so no pressure. If you need to go in and out for whatever reason, absolutely no pressure at all, and you're always welcome. And it's always great to learn with you whenever we can. So I want to just start today with a story, a little bit personal, but when we had our second child, we've got three amazing kids. When we had our second child, like pretty much, you're in the hospital for a few days and then we go home. So thank God everything was fine, even though there was a whole other story where I ended up delivering my child, but that actually was not the challenge over here. After the hospital, we got to the hospital. After the hospital, came back home, and you're trying to do your life, and now you have two children. So that's different to having one child. If you work out now, so and it's it's a major blessing and a major challenge. New challenges which you're asked to encounter. And basically, it was the first night that we were back and trying our best because the little boy is up crying a lot of the night and trying to do your best between the two parents. And I'm trying to be the kind of heroic father and trying to do the best I can, stay up at night. To my wife's amazing, but I want to try and help her as much as I can, and just about hanging on there to try and stay up with this newborn baby. And then our other son was only 1 year old at the time, and then he also starts crying, and I didn't I couldn't handle it. I didn't know what to do because I don't have you put absolute every single ounce of your energy, which you don't have very much of, as a new parent at that time, into helping this one newborn baby, and then your other child also needs help. And I wanted so desperately to be able to be a good father for, my wife and not make her have to. She's been through so much, in the past few days, to just allow her to, and anyway, but it was impossible. It's can't do that. And so she came in and, helped me with our new son so I could help the firstborn one. And I just, at that time when she took the baby off me, just went and just collapsed on my bed and burst into tears. And I can't do this. There's something something which I'm being asked to do, which I can't do. And that was pretty brutal. Thank God, fast forward, we are here today. So something happens. What do you do? What do you do in these situations in life where it seems like you're being asked to do something that you can't do? Is there such a thing? Or is there not such a thing? I think in terms of personal experience, that is not my only time that this kind of thing has happened to me. I don't know if anyone has had such an experience before where you really feel you're being asked to something that you just can't do. So what do you do? What do you do with those things in life? So that's what we're going to try and think about a bit today. If it can, there's a bias that right-handed people, they look first to the right side of the room, and left-handed people look first to the left side of the room. So Sarah Nachman should get paid eventually because I always give her, so always sitting there, always giving her the thing to hand out because I think it's I've realized because I'm right-handed, so I'm always looking there. Caleb's a perfectly good candidate to hand stuff out as well. But thank you for doing that. So this is what we want to try and get into today. And what about these challenges which appear that we can't handle? Is there such a thing as a challenge that you can't handle or not? And overall, we want to start by just addressing this question of why does God give you challenges after all? Why does God give you nisyonot, give you tests? Right? I know why I would give a test. Right? I am running a course for different kinds of practitioners. I'm also a sleep counselor and educator, so I'm running a course at the moment to train people to have a better understanding of sleep, social workers and different people, so they can help their clientele accordingly. And I think I want to give them a test at the end of the course to make sure that they have learned enough. I know why I want to give them a test because I don't know whether they have learned the course appropriately or not. God knows everything. So why would he give you tests? So why would God test you if he knows? The reason that we give tests to other people, if you do, is because you don't know. Nefesh HaChaim knows, so why does he give you tests? So this is the issue that the Maharal is going to be dealing with over here. So let's go to that. So in the Gemara Shem it says, so Moshe haya ro'eh et son Yitro chotno kohen Midyan. Moshe was the shepherd. He was shepherding the flock, the sheep of Yitro, his father-in-law, who was the priest, the spiritual leader of Midian. Vaynhaget hatzon achar midbar, and he was leading the flock behind the midbar, behind the wilderness. Vayavo el har ha'elokim chorev, and then he came to the mountain of God. So this is a really interesting thing. And then the next line is that he comes to the burning bush, and this is Moshe's first revelation. This is his first real prophetic experience, where he is now going to have the experience of the burning bush, and God is going to call to him Moshe. And so that's what's about to happen. What has the prequel to that allegedly is Moshe being a shepherd. So what does one have to do here? So the Midrash says false. It says, "Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu ma'aleh et ha'adam legedula el im kein bachno tchila." God never raises someone up to a higher level until he tests them first. He gives them an ordeal first. Shneimar Hashem Tzadik Yivchan, that God is going to test the righteous one. Ubama Bachnu B'miratzon. And what about Moshe? How does this fit into this story of Moshe? So he tested him regarding his work as a shepherd. That was part of his test, which we'll elaborate on what exactly the test of that was. But this is something which was going on with Moshe himself. So the idea of being given a challenge, being given a test, is something which the Midrash is saying is going to be very strongly related to growth, to getting to higher levels. And none other than Moshe Rabbeinu himself had to go through long periods of this ordeal before getting to that higher level. So let's see what the Maharal has to do with this. He says, so the first thing is the verse from the Torah. What we just read is the Midrash, and then the Maharal is what he's usually doing. The Maharal is usually speaking on Chazal, which is the Talmud, the Midrash, and bringing what some people is often a closed book. If you don't have certain background ideas, the Maharal is usually opening up the depths of Chazal for you. So that's what we're doing. So he says, what is this whole idea? Lo hayalo lichtov u'Moshe haya ro'eh et son Yitro. It didn't have to say. So firstly, he's now going into the textual basis for Chazal saying that there's anything interesting in this verse whatsoever. So firstly, it shouldn't have said Moshe was shepherding the flock. V'havei l'mechtav vayhi Moshe ro'eh et son Yitro. He was doing that. Slightly different grammatical tense. Aval katav Moshe haya ro'eh b'lashon avar, but it says it in the past tense. I don't say like this is what Moshe was doing. Moshe was shepherd, or he was even a shepherd. Maybe you could translate it like that. So why is it saying he was a shepherd? Why is it emphasizing that it's in the past tense? What it's telling you is it's because that he went through this period of being a ro'eh, of a shepherd. Zuvaya ne'eman Vayera Malach, and therefore he was trustworthy. And then he goes to see, and then he sees the angel of prophetic experience after that. So it's making these processes talk about correlation and causation. It's not correlation; it's a causative relationship between these two things. That one stage was necessary in order to get to the next stage. That's why it's putting one in the past tense, so you can know that there's this relationship between these events. It wasn't just there's a thing which was going on, and coincidentally he had a prophetic experience. It was because of his experience as a shepherd, he followed that with experience and prophecy. And then what did he there? What did God then do to Moshe? He gave him Yisrael, the nation of Israel, to be a shepherd for them. So he had this kind of like setup that now you know how to be a shepherd. Okay, now I'm going to give you Yisrael. And that's the job that you have to do for them as well. So that's kind of the example. But what does this have to do with the principle that Chazal are teaching us? That there's something about growth and rising to different levels which has to do with being tested. So he says, so va'af ki hu yibarach yodea hakol. God knows everything. It's near first. God knows everything. Ve'ein nistar v'ne'ela me'inav. There's nothing which can be hidden from Hashem. Mikol makom kasher tzikato b'foal shenireh b'tzon davar zeh b'foal. So what's happening here is that it's only when a person's righteousness is brought into the realm of actuality, of foal, of actualized, hu sibaliot ole el gedula b'foal. That will therefore be a reason that they will actually go up in a level in actuality. And if it wasn't for that thing that they tested him, then they wouldn't have achieved their actual righteousness in a practical sense. So and then they wouldn't have had this reason, this causative element, which rose them up to a higher level. Inyan amok. And this is an extremely deep thing. So if the Maharal ends off what he says by saying this is an extremely deep thing, so it means we have a little bit of work to do to understand what's going on. So basically what you have over here, so basically what we have over here is an approach to this like fundamental theological question, which is why would Hashem test you? Because the reason that we test other people is because we don't know whether they are on a certain level or not. So we test to reveal whether they're on that level. But God knows what level you're on. So why does he test you? So it seems to be that what's going on here is that he wants to bring something from the realm of potential into the realm of actual. It's called koach, potential, to poal, to actual. So there could be something which is a level that you have in theory, but you've not actually actualized it. And with the actual test, what God is actually doing is giving you that opportunity to take that thing which is true about you in theory and actually make it true about you in actual reality. So this is the start. This is the start of the idea over here. So this general idea, you certainly have an approach over here to why is God testing people. It's not because he lacks knowledge. He knows. It's not a revolution. It's an evolution. Meaning it's not revealing just something which exists, which is why we test other people, because we don't know. So we have to find a way to work out what's going on with them. He knows already, but it's actually evolving. There's actually something changing through the experience of the test. A little in Maharal's way, his language a little philosophical, still a little intangible for us. So let's bring in now the Nefesh HaChaim, and hopefully with that we can have an approach to understand what the Inyan Amok, the depth that the Maharal is actually referring to over here. So let's have a look at that. So as follows, the Nefesh HaChaim says, Inyan Marei Asulam. So we're taking, even though we're already in Sefer Vayikra, we're taking a bit of a tour through Bereshit and Shemot for the purposes of these things. And the Nefesh HaChaim wants to talk about Jacob's ladder, the vision of the ladder that he has in his dream, which I think we may have talked about together before. He says, Inyan Marei Asulam. What is going on with that idea? Mutzav Arza. There's so we're all on the same page. We have Yaakov. He goes to sleep. He sees a ladder, which is going from well, we'll see about this, but it's going certainly between heaven and earth. And I think there's angels, which are your Dim Olim, which are going down and up this ladder. So what is this vision that he is seeing? So Nefesh HaChaim says this is what's really going on. He says, "V'lo amar mutzav ba'aretz." So again, as I always do, which is a good kind of like Midrash Rachel way, is that you always have to start off with the text. So there is and the philosophy of these different people is usually that the Chazal don't just magic things out of thin air. They usually are either coming from or attaching themselves to something in the text itself, some kind of textual problem. And with a deeper understanding of that textual problem, then you'll actually be able to understand some interesting lesson. There's an interesting thing. I can't remember who said this. But it was like it's quite a good line. There's someone who was into biblical criticism and different ways to pick apart the Torah and find different kinds of faults in it. And I said, yeah, there's this book which is like the biggest thing for that. It's every single thing where it's like a contradiction in the Torah or like a problem, like grammatical problem. It's like it's called Chumash Rashi. It's like that's basically like what we do. That's what we do. So we look at the text and we see, oh, there's an issue. Oh, that means there's something deeper going on, and then we go somewhere else. It's just interesting. That is really the way. So that's the good news over here. They try and give you these textual skills, so you have the ability to do this also yourself. But anyway, so what's the peculiarity in this verse? It says, "V'lo amar mutzav ba'aretz." It doesn't say that the ladder was planted in the land, ba'aretz, ella artza. It says artza, shepirush la'aretz. It means towards the land. So if you use that sort of thing in terms of biblical Hebrew, if you put a hey on the end of something, it's the same as putting a lamed in the beginning of something. In also modern Hebrew, they do that as well. Ani olech habaita means I'm going home. It means labayit, it's going to that place. So even just even do that in modern Hebrew as well. So it says mutzav artza, which means la'aretz, means that it's kind of an interesting line that the ladder is going towards the land. That's what it says. It says umashma'o sherosh ikar shorsho b'shamayim ma'al. So what does that imply to you? It's so hard for me to even say his words. That's why you say I stumbled before, because what you want to say is that what is the vision of? The vision is of a ladder which is going from earth up to heaven. But that's not what the verse says. The verse says it's going from heaven down to earth, which is quite hard. You keep tripping myself up by not being able to say that properly. But that's technically what it says. Mutzav artza means to the earth. So that means that the ladder is really beginning. Is like the main location, the ikar, the main location of the ladder. The root is in the heavens, and then it is going down and coming down all the way to the land. It reminds me a bit of not that I've actually seen this in real life, but in movies, which I haven't seen also, like a helicopter, and you lower down a ladder thing from a helicopter, or something like that. But anyway, it's just interesting, when the ladders start in the sky. It's like something like that's the closest equivalent I can think of. But anyway, yeah. So that's yeah. Is that how it goes? Yeah.
It's like the heavens,
Yeah.
the giants,
Yeah. So this is even that's an interesting point. So this is even
I feel like it's like a
Yeah.
big ladder that's just going up.
Yeah, so that's even what, and what's this is saying is even the next level of which I don't remember if this was a further development in the sort of Jack and Beanstalk or not, but this is even saying it would be like the equivalent would be like something from that realm of the clouds or wherever it is being lowered down to earth. So that's even basically what we're apparently revealing over here just by looking at the words a bit more closely. So the ladder is very interesting indeed. It's something which is not just going between heaven and earth, but it's actually starting up and is growing down the way until it goes all the way down and is planted on the earth at the very end. So what is that about? It says that Umisham, so it starts off in the heavens, Umisham, hu mishtalshel, v'yored ad la'aretz yagia. It goes down until it reaches the land. Hishtalshut goes down until it reaches the earth from the heavens. So what is that all about? V'hu nishmat chayim shel ha'adam. What was Yaakov really seeing in his dream? He was seeing himself. That's what he was seeing. He was seeing his own neshama, the nishmat chaim of the human being. He was seeing his own neshama, which is a thing which is in exactly that form. Shemitatzel keviyachol min nishimat piv yibarach shemo. It begins as which is an emanation of the, so to speak, the breath of God. That's neshama and neshima is the same word. So the word neshama, the reason that that's the name for our soul is because it comes from the word neshima, which is the breath of God. So if you just kind of go back to going even earlier in Bereshit, so in terms of vayipach ba'apav nishmat chaim, how God gave life to the first human being, that He breathed life into him. So that is not a process which just happened once. That is actually if all of us who have a neshama, what that means is that God is actually breathing life into us every minute. And so our life is actually really like a part of God in many ways. That's like a constant process. Anyway, so that's what's going on over there. And he says, so that's our neshama, so it's starting up there, and it's really the breath of God in the highest of heavens. Umisham mishtal shel kasula. Then from there it goes down step by step like a ladder. The shalshelet, and like a chain, im aruach, and it goes together then with the ruach, the ruach the nefesh, and the ruach to the nefesh, which is the progressively more worldly parts of our soul, ad ridat halazeh ha'olam bakuf ha'adam, until it gets all the way down to this to this world, and it goes into your body. So this is really the story of your neshama, right? And this is the diagram. So this is again with obviously a pinch of salt. So what's being described over here? We have a ladder which is going from the heavens, starting up at the top. That looks like something heavenly over there. So we'll start over there, and it's going from here, and it starts over here, and it goes down until it reaches the land. What is that? That's something that's called your neshama, which is also the neshima, which is the breath of Hashem. That's starting up there, so to speak, in the highest realm. Says we'll get into the particular terminology in just a second, but that's coming down from there all the way down until it gets to the guf, until the body of the human being. So, and then let's say that's what. Go on, I'll give you that as well. And this is basically the reality. So it's just quite an interesting thing that the majority of your you is not actually inside you. That's quite interesting. What does it mean? So yeah, so basically, so what it means, at least metaphysically, what it means is that this is you, right? You have what do you have? You can act, you do things, you say things, you feel, you think. All that's kind of like going on to some extent inside the human body, and the rest of the world, kind of. That's it. That's the entirety of the investigation of at least biology and psychology and neuroscience is kind of like here. That's you. That's your functionality as a human being, and that's it. But the true extent of you, this is just the tip of the iceberg, upside down iceberg, and it goes from here, and your neshama does come down inside of you, but it's actually going up to the highest of heavens. I'll tell you a couple of questions, but maybe I'll just give some of the terminology, and then we'll just come to the question. So what does that mean? What does it mean, the highest of heavens? So some people may be familiar with this. They're sort of all on the same page. So really the truth is there are different levels of your soul. There is the neshama, which is the highest level. And also, as he mentioned, there's the ruach, which is the middle level of your soul. And then there's also the nefesh, which is down here. Your neshama primarily relates to your faculty of thought. So that's machshava. Wow. And so when you're thinking, you're activating the highest part of your spirituality, which is called your neshama. When you are feeling and speaking, so this is like dibur and hergesh, which is like speaking and also feeling. So that's coming from your ruach. So when you say like, So, for example, also like song comes into this realm as well. So if you're like, that's why like emotion and song and lyrics are all kind of like all in the same place in your spiritual anatomy. So if you're feeling something, if you're like really feeling something, that's your ruach is kind of like lighting up at that time. And then the nefesh is the part of your spirituality which relates to your actions. And so this is, so what does it mean that the totality of you is really outside of you? So you, it's true, you're doing the physical actions in your consciousness may be down here, but your actual reality is going all the way up. Your neshama starts here, but it goes, or really it starts there, the truth is. But it reaches here, but it really goes all the way up to the highest of heavens. And I guess we'll maybe add in one more set of labels. What does it mean the highest of heavens in the highest realm? So he alluded to it over there, but he said the word shemitatzel. That is emanation, but also is the name of the highest of the four universes, which we typically talk about. So up here you have Atzilut, which is the godly realm. And then moving down from that, you have Bria, and Yetzira, and Asiya. So these are different names for different olamot. What does any of this mean? Atzilut is the realm which is pure godliness up there. Asiya is the realm down here that you see around you. And these are intermediate realms, which are developments of spirituality all the way down to becoming more and more tangible until you can actually have a physical world down here, which you can have chomer, matter, that you can actually touch. So Bria is relating kind of like to the realm of the Neshama, Yetzira is relating to the Ruach, and Asiya is relating to this. The bottom line is, even though the terminology, if it helps, it helps. If not, don't worry about it. But the bottom line is, there is a whole spiritual map of the world out there, and you span all of it. You go all the way from the top, all the way down to the bottom, and that is what the vision of Yaakov was. That was the vision of the sulam, of the ladder, which is exactly what a ladder. This is the ladder. Is that this is the thing which they will add on one more thing. It also talked about in the vision of the ladder, the angels going up and down, right? It just comes out quite interesting that the angels are associated. There's different angels in different realms. Primarily, they're associated with Yetzirah, but there are other realms as well. So the angels are in particular points in the Ulumos. They sometimes are going up to get message from Hashem. They're coming down to carry out that message in the world. But they're like somewhere in the middle, usually, most of the time. And you actually surpass the angels. You're, on the one hand, your intangible existence down here is on a lower level than the angels, but you sort of overtake them to a certain extent, so that your neshama, your highest spirituality is actually even on a higher level than the angels. So this is a little bit technical and metaphysical, but we just want to grasp that. What's he talking about when he says that the ladder is a vision of the human being, where the soul starts up there and comes all the way down here? So pause for a few questions over here for a minute. That's okay, Kayla, you were.
I think maybe I just missed it, but what's the connection with Yaakov's dream of the ladder, and like does that have to do with his nefesh and neshama and kind of going up and down?
Yeah. So the first thing is just the kind of like the anatomy of it, which is that your soul is something which reaches the heavens. It starts here and it reaches the heavens. So just interesting, just to think about that, like you any one period of time. So that's what the Zohar Nefesh HaChaim brings it. The Zohar says that calls us shoes. Is a na'al. The body is called a na'al. There's a shoe, which basically is, if you think about it, what's in a shoe is that you've got the leg, which is going down, and then you have the shoe, which is just covering the very, very bottom of that thing. But that's why we're a bunch of shoes which are kind of like interacting with each other, because the main part of it is actually mostly above. So that's like the first part. It's just, that his soul is a ladder. It's something which is going all the way from the heavens all the way down here. That's step one. But then, and also another point, as I should say as well, points out here, is that since it's a ladder, what's the idea of a ladder? Is it's not just something which exists down here and exists up there, but it's got steps. So there's something which we'll come back to. There's something about connections, and even though there's a gigantic range of spirituality which you encompass, but they're step by step. So it's going to be irrelevant to that. And the other thing, I'm sure there's infinite other things, but the other main thing to think about is the angels. What does it mean? That you have angels which are going up and down. So the main thing that means is that we have, like we learn in Nefesh HaChaim, that we are basically the only active kind of participants in many ways in creation, because everything else is really kind of passive, or at least responsive, you could say. Angels, what do angels do? They do what they're told. What do? We do what we choose. And in that sense, we're actually kind of like running the show, and we're the ones who are in many ways telling the angels, what to do, and they are going up and going down accordingly. You've heard things like your tefillahs are carried up by angels. That's part of what's going on in this story. So the fact that what you do down here affects everything in all the higher worlds, and then what goes on in the higher worlds has a ripple effect back down here. So that's part of what's being described with the going up and down as well. It's just some of those things which are relating to the dream. Yeah, other questions? So this is us already. Yes, actually.
That is a ladder though. We're talking about tests. So are this is the ladder and something that we travel up and down as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is yes, you're perfectly bringing us on to how are we going to put these two things together. So we just learned the source about tests, and then we just learned about ourselves. But we're basically, I think, ready pretty much to put these together. So the Maharal said that there's something called you have something in potential, but you don't have it in actuality. And the test is meant to bring something from the realm of potential to actual. So what does that mean? That means is, Tully's back in the game. What that means is, right, so just think about it for a second. You have this range of spirituality to you. So you're in many ways, you're up in the heavens, right? But the angels don't make the same mistakes that I do. Right? The angels are living in purely spiritual realms, even already just in the second level. It's spiritual, there's no physicality anymore, it's spirituality. So the angels have such a clear vision of Shem and his will and the reality of the world that they don't typically, they don't really sin. So the question is whether you say that they have a free choice at all, but simple, at least that they have the clearest, that's why Nefesh HaChaim says it. There's such a clear vision of truth, of spiritual truth, that it just doesn't really make sense for them to do anything other than what Hashem said. And I also exist over there. So like, why do I make all these mistakes? Why is it hard when something, we talked about yesterday, like, when bad things happen, there's usually a purpose for everything in the world. So why is it so hard for me? So part of what's going on is that you may exist in principle on all these levels, these things which have, but in terms of where do you live? Where do you really live? So we all start living down here. This is where we start. And the terms of this world are the things which speak to us. And even though we know that those are often out of line with like deeper truth. So, what speaks to us? Physical pleasure, is something which is like, I eat things that I know are not good for me because I like them. Right? Angels don't really do that. So that's called that so our level of existence is something like down here in the world. It's down here in the physical world, and your dealings are within the realm of physicality. Your consciousness is a physicality consciousness. Even slightly higher than that, but like, what about kavod? Like people like kavod, people like to be recognized, people like acknowledgement. You can have it in the smaller ways and the bigger ways. Like, really, in truth, you don't need any acknowledgement whatsoever. Like if you know that you're the greatest thing in existence, and you're far greater than the angels, right? So why do I need a pat on the back? For something that I did. I know someone, he's quite a big rabbi. He told me that he says if he gives, and he's like an amazing speaker, right? He told me that if he gives a speech and he doesn't immediately get very positive feedback, he feels like a complete failure. Usually he does get very positive feedback because he's very good, but like, but that shouldn't need to be like fundamentally. If we're in touch with ourselves and know the reality of who we are, like, what does a piece of positive feedback really make a difference. You know that you're greater than the angels. Like, you don't need this positive feedback on the speech that you gave. But that's our consciousness. That's where we live. We live down here. We live in terms of the physical world, or at least that's where we start off. And so there are these different things. So we live. We start off, and this really comes back to the ladder. So we start off in not actualizing our full selves. We have a bigger self. There's something about me which could be, think of like special people in the world. For if you can think of like, some of it. I'll just give you an example, right? There's the Stifler, who's like people made from Rabbi Nachman. So his father was kind of like the Gadol Ador, one of the Gadol Ador before, not too long ago. And he was, if you know what it is to be in that position. So a lot of people are coming to you. They're coming to you with their problems. They're coming to you for different things that they have in life. And he would go to bed every single night. He would cry himself to sleep. Because he would have the names of so many people to daven for every single day. His heart would just go out to every single one of them, and he would just be like davening and saying to them for them until he just and they just went to sleep every night. Well, this person is living on there's a different plane of existence. So that's the most important thing to you in life. That you just be living like that. So he's living like somewhere here. I don't know, for argument's sake. He's actualized more of his soul. Your soul for sure wants to cry for Klal Yisrael. That's for sure. Your soul wants, and that's what But what I get caught up in, like slightly lower level issues. But this is the ladder, because since the structure of our soul is like this, we have the ability to climb, and it's in the higher levels of ourselves are not inaccessible at all. But they actually are. Something that we have the ability to actualize. So all of this at the moment of birth, you have all of this unbelievable spirituality to you, but it's all in potential. You haven't actualized any of them. And during the course of life, this is what we try and do, is to climb the levels of ourselves and raise ourselves to higher levels of spirituality until you're a different plane of existence. Different things are speaking to you. Different things are motivating you. Some things are motivating you less. Some things are motivating you more. Your values are changing. Your values are. I was getting a question from a guy today who, long story short, it's like it was a question about money and whether he's allowed to accept money for a certain thing. The answer is sure not. Meaning it's like it was dishonest. It was a dishonesty thing. There are some people who would, but there's some people on a higher level, they would just never think about, like, for 1 second, it's like being dishonest with money. Being dishonest with money is a feature of this world, but we have the potential to rise above and to live on higher levels of existence. And I think that we can probably all speak to this to some extent in our own lives. So, okay, it's talking about superstars, fine, but relatively speaking, I think everyone here can probably safely say for themselves that you're not living in the exact same level of existence that you always were. That you've grown. Like, look at you here right now. Like, there's something special which is going on. So we all have the ability to access and to actualize these higher levels of ourselves and to actually climb the ladder of ourselves. Now, that's the ladder. How does it come into the Maharal? So what the Maharal says is that, so this is where tests come from. Sometimes, which is what we'll be speaking about possibly in future shiurim in this term, that you can choose to grow. It's like, I want to be better at this, and you put in the work, and we'll discuss how do you do that, how do you grow, and how do you put in the work to become better at things that you want to become better at. But sometimes you don't get the choice. Sometimes Hashem says, it's time for you to grow. So what does that look like? What does that feel like? It feels very painful. It feels like you're being given something which is beyond your ability to do, because it is beyond you. Because you haven't acquired that level of your existence yet. It's something that you have the ability to do because you're, in theory, in principle, because your soul goes all the way up. In principle, you could do anything. But in your life right now, you can't do that yet. And Hashem pushes you one level above yourself, and he says, I'd like to reach there. and he doesn't give you a choice. And so that's what that feels like. So it's really being like selected for the most amazing thing, but that which life is really all about, to climb the ladder of our own selves, to become greater people, to grow, to become more. But that's something which can be thrust upon us. It's not something which we always get the choice about. So that's, as I say, in the future shiurim we'll talk. You can do this on your own terms, but sometimes Hashem, sometimes He says, I've decided that you have a special mission. I want you to be on a higher level. Let's go. I'll just give you an example of like a thing, which is like amazing. Like, yeah, like pretty amazing story. So, Rav Reuven Leuchter, who some of you have heard me talk about, he's pretty amazing because he's living there. He lives in Jerusalem, and he's number one. He's like Haredi, and he's also Swiss. So between the two of those, he's like quite a stern, kind of strict speaking kind of guy, kind of person, rabbi. And he, so he says it how it is. He has no interest in apologetics. He has no interest in saying things which will please people. He has interest in saying things which are true. So it's really interesting when you see him being extremely sensitive. And he told the story of, there was a guy who called him up. So this guy, he was married. He had married, and they had just had a child who had Down syndrome. But they didn't know. I don't know why they didn't know that was going to happen. Maybe they didn't do tests or whatever, but they just found out, and they were very upset. Again, just coming from some special needs, very close to myself and to my family, and so some people it wouldn't be something which is hard for them. If you've never heard of it before, it's something which is really hard for you, right? So if you don't know anything about it, especially if you weren't expecting it, it's something which could be really hard for you. And he got a call from this guy saying, we just had, with like no notice whatsoever, we just had this baby who has Down syndrome, and he described that this was something which was kind of going to be a pretty unthinkably challenging situation for these people, because they were all about basically that everything in their life was like perfect, meaning it was because it was not perfect, because they both came from broken homes. Him and his wife both came from like broken homes, and so they wanted their life to be just perfect. And he said that that all I think they had children already, and all their children had perfectly matching. He said even the bow on their hair would match the bow on the shoes, and it's like everything is like just right. And that is and things are about to change. It was something which was not something which was within their within their capabilities that they currently had to do what needs to be done in the situation. So Rabbi Leuchter, and he didn't have anyone else to call. So Rabbi said, "Why are you calling me?" He didn't have anyone else to call. So he went over to him, and he sat with him, and he said, "You're about to make some considerable changes." He said, "You think that life is about presentation. That's how they've been living their life. With a Down syndrome child, you will never be able to be presentable in the way that you want to be. It's just not how it works. What you're about to find out is that life is not about presentation. Life is about simcha." And yeah, life is about joy. And that was it. And he said he never really heard from him for many years, which is not kind of like not what everyone would say at that time. I'm not sure if I would have the knowledge, certainly not the courage, to say something like that to someone at that time. Think just validate and just be sensitive. And he told him this. Anyway, years later, he's walking down the streets and he meets this guy, and the guy says, "Oh, Rabbi Leuchter, how are you?" And he says, "How am I? How are you? You're the one. I was fine. I was always fine. How are you?" And he said, "Oh, wonderful. Everything, having like Hashem, things are going really well." And he saw that the lesson had come to fruition, and they'd seen, that was different. Life was about something different, and that is called rising to a higher level of existence through a challenge that you can't handle. They couldn't handle that challenge at the time. They were called on to be more than they were. This, by the way, is the Maharal. I think he goes into it elsewhere. The word nisayon, which is the word for a test or a challenge. So it comes from the word nes, of miracle. What's the relationship between a miracle and a challenge is that you're being asked to do a miracle. You're being asked to go above. What's a miracle? A miracle is something which goes above the reality that we know. That is what you're being asked to do with the nisayon. You're being asked to go above the reality of your own existence at that particular stage of life. So, so with that, basically, the question is, how do you answer that question? Are there challenges in life that you can't handle? Or can you, there's sources in Chazal which also seem to see, it's not just, everyone says, right, Hashem will only give you something you can handle, right? And there are, it's not just a slogan, there are bases for that statement. So how do you reconcile that with what we experience? The answers are both true. Is now you can't handle that, but you have the potential to rise to a higher level of existence where you could handle that. And that's basically the model. That's basically what's going on in so many times in life. So can I handle it or can't I handle it? The answer is yes, both of those things. And I think one of the things for me is that it's, I think, kind of the kind of growth point over here, or like the resilience point over here, is that it makes such a difference to just know that. Like if you're dealing with a situation which appears to be an impossible situation, it's like validate. It's like, yeah, there's such a thing as an impossible situation. It doesn't, and yet there may still be something that you can do in this impossible situation. And I just think that's like that step one of just knowing that you're not like off the derech because you think you're being given an impossible situation. You are actually being given an impossible situation. And yet, there is still something that you can do about it. There's still some hope. So there's another source on G. But anyone have any thoughts or questions you want to share at this stage? Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
There's also those challenges that aren't just a challenge that comes up and then you overcome it, but that like are the theme of your life.
Yeah.
So are you talking about that?
Also that's even harder, but it's actually the same thing, which is that, for example, Rabbi Nachman in a second. So Rabbi Nachman, he had one of these. Does anyone know what his life challenge was? No? Well, that's probably also true, honestly. There's another one that he speaks about, although that fits a lot, is a fear of death. He was afraid of dying. It's like an abnormal, like as a child, like I maybe think about hearing that, but like he was abnormally afraid. He was like something he's really got to from childhood, and basically he worked on this his whole life, and as far as I'm aware, continued to work on it his whole life. So there are things like that. Sometimes there are like events. They could be shorter term or longer term, and there can be things. I'm really glad to put that up. And that can be life themes, which is like there is a constant like escalator that Hashem wants you to be on. Is that I want you to come higher and higher and higher in this realm, and so that can also for sure be the case. Yeah, to answer the question.
Yeah, so you're just maybe like you keep. I guess you kind of keep getting higher and higher and higher.
Yeah,
like a lot of times then just like the same thing again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you think that it's the like, oh, I can't believe I'm still here. It's not true. You're not still here. You've climbed like 10 levels. And Hashem wants you to keep going. So it's quite funny because I said that it's different, it depends what you're talking about. There's different versions of this, but one of the things that Chazal says is like the Yetzer Hara like grows with the person. So you think, oh, like, I thought I'd go over this. One more, Rabbi Nachman while we're at it, is that, when he came to Eretz Israel, he said, it's funny, he's like, he was walking along the beach and he met the Yetzer Hara. He's like, what are you doing here? I thought, Eretz Israel, no, it's not. No, I'm coming with for the ride. It's like, that's how it goes. Like you rise in a level of spirituality. So then the Yetzer Hara you've killed all the Yetzer Hara, but a new one, comes about. And so it sometimes looks to you like you're dealing with the same old problem, but it's actually, you're in a completely different level of existence. And Hashem wants you to keep going. So that's like a certain special kind, the hardest kind, and also a certain special kind of challenge that Hashem is giving you to say that keep going. So Chazal said that I think it's Talmidei Chachamim, Elam Menucha, Lo L'Olam Hazeh, Lo L'Olam Haba. That Talmidei Chachamim, they never get to a state of Menucha, just chilling, just coasting. So that's why Hashem, from the people that are most special to Hashem. He wants you to keep going. So the hardest for us to deal with, and means you're the most dear to Hashem.
I hear this term thrown around sometimes from people like God doesn't give you a challenge that you can't handle.
Yeah.
Doesn't it kind of run directly contrary to this?
Yeah, so that's my provocative title for the thing, because people say that, but and as I was mentioning, there's not like one exact line which says that in Chazal. I was looking it up. It's like, is there any one? There's not one line. There are things which basically imply that. So that's not an illegitimate line. So what we're saying here is like a paradox, and in Torah, a paradox can exist. Can you handle it or can't you handle it? So the way that we're answering that question is there is something that you cannot handle in your current actualized level of existence. But there's something that you have the ability to rise to a higher level of existence. So in that sense, you can handle it. It's just not really the you that you started off the story with. It's going to be a new you that can handle it. It was you all along. It's not completely new because it was really, you exist here all the way up. You can go for a very, none of us are probably going to, maybe you guys, I'm not going to run out of, things in life to grow with. There's a lot, there's some high levels to climb to. So you have it in potential inside of you in your spirituality, but to bring it out into full, to actualize it and live that level of existence. So that's what it really means to be able to handle it. It means to not be able to handle it in your current level of existence, but to actualize a new level of yourself and to do that. That one is not as quick to say, so that's probably one. Well, firstly, people don't know this. And also, even if they knew it, it's not as good for a slogan. It's Hashem never gives you something you can't handle. So it's quicker to say that, but what they really mean, if you read the Rashi commentary on what people mean when they say that, even if they don't know it, this is what they really mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go back on the question again.
Yeah. Wait, sorry, could you say it again? You want to ask
something? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Can I give like an example? It's not just an example. So, like an alcoholic, for example.
Yeah.
They will just deal with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they won't deal with it. They'll just do alcohol or whatever else. But every single time they relapse or they have a challenge again, it's the same challenge. It's not like oh, now I want like 60% alcohol. Like it's
no. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It might be the same challenge in terms of action, but it's not the same challenge in the spiritual realm necessarily, because as I said, the Yetzer Hara grows with the person. This is a bit of a nuanced thing. It's also like physiological thing, but what it would be like is like you rise to a higher level. It's like you like, let's say in boxing, like so you rise to a higher level. Your opponent is also on a higher level, so it's the same thing. You're both punching each other. So it seems like the same thing, but really you just can't tell.
Like
that's what it. But that's only because that's what it looks like to us. Meaning, what it looks like in the physical world, you're right. It's the same thing. So it's all called alcohol. But why that's the appeal that has is something which is completely invisible. So what's going on behind the scenes is actually like higher levels. That's something which can be the case. I can take more questions about it. I just want to make sure to read the last verse before we end, and I've got a few minutes after if you want to ask more. But this is the thing. So let's end with the Rabbi Nachman thing, which is the line everyone's saying Im Shum Yesh B'Olam Kol. This is the piece where it comes from over here. He says Va'ikar l'chazek atzmo b'chol ma she'efshar. The main thing is to strengthen yourself in any way that you can, as much as you can. Ki ein shum yesh b'olam kol. There's no yeush, there's no despair, there's no giving up in the world. And that's partly why I wanted to teach about this week. It's also the week of Netzach, which the Netzach means eternity, but it really means don't give up. That's what it really means. Netzach means don't give up. Keep going. And afilu im nafal makom shenafal, even if you fall very low. Even if you fall very low, and these things are like unbearably hard. So if you strengthen yourself, whatever way you can, there's always hope. There's always hope. Whichever and dire situation you find yourself, there's always hope. So I think that's really for me in terms of like what how does this help me in those situations? I think it helps me in those two ways. One way is to, this situation is impossible. Say, number one, there's a spiritual validation of that. It is, in a certain sense, it is actually an impossible situation. But on the other hand, there's also still hope. And I think that's really the thing, is that's the thing which can get you more than anything is there's no way forward from here. That's a thing which it's a voice. It can be very, very strong. At certain times there's no way, this is it, there's no way forward. But Ein Shom Yesh Ba'olam Kal, there's always hope. The hope is that there's a superpower that Hashem gave you to rise above yourself and acquire higher levels of existence. And hopefully this is something which can give us strength and hope during these times, be it the short-term struggles or the long-term struggles, to know that number one, sometimes Hashem feels that you're so special that He wants to give you something which is going to push you even beyond that which you can do in any natural way. And there's always hope, and to never give up in those times. Okay, Shkaya, bro. I have a few minutes, 10 minutes. Any more questions? But everyone's listening. Welcome to disperse. Shantaya.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Oh, it's definitely rooting for the rest of us. So like, let's say there's this macho one
Yeah.
that the guy keeps being